Well, hi again, folks. Welcome into UnAnchored Boston with Bob Lobel. I'm Mike Lynch, and as always, we are brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping and where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, and by the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, George Gray's Lexington Toyota. All right, we got a great guest this week because there's so much happening. It all revolves around winning teams and a quarterback, and nobody's been around the National Football League and winning teams more than this guy, Matt Hasselbeck. Long before there was Matty Ice, there was Matty Hass. And so, the formal introduction, we're going to let Lobel introduce you, Matty. I don't know how this is going to go.
Oh well, yeah, I'll let you introduce me, but my teammates called me Matty Nice, just like I was always too nice. But
Matty
yeah,
Nice. Wow.
Well, I didn't think your opponents thought you were too nice. I mean, you're in the Ring of Honor in Seattle for a reason, and it's because you were so successful there. I'll just say this: you're the perfect guest today. You check all the boxes. If we could have a perfect guest for the perfect week, you would be the one. And so everybody kind of looks for that perfect guest, and Matt Hasselbeck is the perfect guest, without a doubt. I'll give you this Varian Brothers background, Boston College background, the National Football League background, with Seattle being the premier event, right? And he's in the Ring of Honor there, ESPN analyst. We've got all kinds of, from analyzing Tom Brady's performance to talking about Seattle, which comes in here next Sunday to play the Patriots, to talk about the Patriots in Cincinnati.
Bob, don't forget, his wife went into the BC Hall of Fame before he did.
Okay, that's right, of course. There's just a great background there. And also to talk about Boston College in a big way, in the way that Bill O'Brien has really kind of led a resurgence in town. It's off the charts, really. I think so many people are happy to see BC back, in at least for a couple of weeks, and seeing how they're going to do this year to bring that program back. But also, Matt, to talk about the unspeakable tragedy that happened to the Goodrows and the whole family and Boston College's environment. So, I mean, when I say check all the boxes, we're talking about a lot of analysis, but also from the heart. And we'll get into the Goodrows a little bit because it's really so sad, and it's affected everybody in the community, especially in the Boston College community. But we'll get to that, Lynchy. And I just want to. Did you see? Let's start off with Brady first, okay? Why not? Did you see him at all? Did you see? Did you watch Fox? I mean, what do you think?
yeah, of course. I mean, it was kind of a terrible game because Deshaun Watson played so badly. It was really ugly, and I think like most of everybody, we're watching a bunch of games all at once. So you hear. I think I probably heard about half of it. I think he's going to be great at it. I think he just needs to let loose. He probably is a person who understands the power of his words. If Tom Brady is critical of a quarterback, it's going to be hard to recover from that in your local market. But I think you guys probably know, just like I do and just like some people do, Tom Brady has an incredible personality. He's also very buttoned up and is at the podium really polished and says the right things as a quarterback, as a franchise quarterback at the podium. But you also know that there's another side of him that the locker room loves, that the guys love, and that he's going to tell it like it is. Like the guy that hangs out with Gronk and Edelman and those guys, and he just like says it how it is. Like that guy can't play. This guy's done. He's washed up. He retired, but he doesn't even know it. Like those are probably some things that would fire out of his mouth if he's sitting around in his own family room watching the game. And I don't think that America got to see that side of him. I think he played it safe. And, I think what would be best for TV is if he just cut it loose and just said what he saw. But I know that that's hard because you understand how hard the position is. You don't want to pile on as a former quarterback. But, yeah, I think the good stuff is still in there somewhere. And I don't think we saw it week one.
When you listen to Collingsworth right after that, it was almost juxtaposition. You could tell how much more used to the whole scene Collingsworth was and how much more comfortable he was because he's been doing it for years. This is not an easy job. And as you know, as an analyst, as Lynchy knows, as a broadcaster, people think you can just walk in there and become an analyst. This is not an easy job. And you're absolutely right. When he's buttoned down like that, I think he'll be great in the long run. He just needs a little time.
Well, I think there's another thing that you see, like you use that example, like as I think if you're Tom Brady, you want to be accurate. And a lot of times I hear guys on television, commentators, they say something with such confidence, but they don't know, or they're wrong, or they're guessing. And I just knowing Tom Brady types, like he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be accurate. So he's not going to sit there and say, oh, the right guard's wrong and the tight end was hot and the quarterback should have had his eyes there. Like you can't know that. It's impossible for you to know what the center made his, like you couldn't know. So he's not going to take a hard line stance sometimes because he could be wrong. Whereas I think like a lot of the people who professionally call football games, they don't care all the time. They just want to sound believable or like that's probably true. But I don't know, like as a player, Brady's probably been the victim of announcers sort of being wrong, and it's probably irked him quite a bit. I know that's the case for a lot of quarterbacks. And so that's one of the things that he's probably told himself, hey, I never want to do that. I never want to put the blame on a guy when I'm not really sure. I don't know what that guy was coached to do. I don't know what their game plan was. And that's a hard thing as a quarterback because you have about 8 seconds to get it out, get in, get out, and to be accurate. It's a tough thing to do. So that's something he'll have to navigate as well.
Do you see his broadcasting career paralleling his playing career? He came in, when Bledsoe got hit by Mo Lewis, and then it took him, I would say half a season until they finally got into that win streak where they ran the table at the end of the year. So it was probably like 6-7 games before he really felt comfortable with that offense and led him to the Super Bowl.
I don't know. I kind of feel like my guess is, this is just a guess, I think he's going to get to a point with it and he's going to be like, is this really what I want to be, spending all my time away from my family to be doing? I think with the playing career, he had a major chip on his shoulder from being picked 199. This was a lifelong goal of his. It was a lifelong dream of his. When he was at Michigan, it was something he was in like really competitive quarterback rooms competing for. Like this was something he had always dreamed of. I don't know that TV is something that he always dreamed of, and I don't think he has the chip on his shoulder. He sort of came in at the top, first overall pick kind of a thing. So I really don't know. I think like as you get older, and I think this is one of the things he saw in his playing career, like the quality time and the time you can spend with family or your kids or whatever, like I think that becomes really, really valuable. So for him, like in this job, to be gone every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like, and then grinding during the week, at some point, I don't know if you need more money or if it's worth, like, I don't know if he has that same like chip. I forget which Rocky Balboa movie it was, but I think that when the trainer was like, the worst thing that can happen to a boxer is he can become civilized. Like it's a little bit, I see that in quarterbacks sometimes where like they're just gritty and grinding to be a quarterback. And then all of a sudden they make a lot of money and they're like, do I really need this anymore? It might be a bad analogy, but like this is a second career. He's given everything he had, every ounce to the first career. At some point, I think he's earned maybe a little bit of a lighter schedule, and we'll see what happens. I don't know. That's just my bold prediction guess, I guess.
Do you see him more comfortable in the role he's in now, or like a studio role, or like with the Manning cast role, or with the things that Belichick are doing?
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like those are so much more simple. So much more simple. Like you're not leaving on a Friday. You're not prepping all week. Like as a quarterback, I know when I started calling college football games on Thursday Night Football way back with Pat McAfee, Adam Amin, and Molly McGrath. And I thought like, oh, this will be fun. I'll just call a college football game. Well, as a quarterback, you're used to studying and knowing everything there is to know about the defense that you're playing. And really, the only thing that matters is what's happened in the last 3 to 4 weeks. Well, as an analyst, when you call a football game, you got to know that defense, the other defense, the offense, the special teams, what's happened this year. You also have to know like the context of, I remember the first game I called, it was like Louisville with Lamar Jackson against Wake Forest. And like I prepared for that game. Well, little did I know it kind of mattered like what had happened the year before and the year before that and 10 years before that and the Wake Forest NC State rivalry 25 years before that. It's a lot more than quarterbacks are used to. You're used to just really studying, hey, I got Lou Anarumo this week. Hey, I got Gus Bradley. I got Bill Belichick. I got this D coordinator. And it's a lot more work. So to pop in as a studio guy or maybe do what Coach Belichick is doing, telling some stories first person, it's very interesting, but it's also a lot less preparation. So probably pays a lot less too. But either way, it's a grind calling those games if you're going to do it well and if you're going to be the primetime game, just like Tom is.
Well, as a quarterback and one of the most successful BC quarterbacks in history in the National Football League, Matt Ryan had a great run. Number 22 had a great run, but so did Matt Hasselbeck. And we know the Ring of Honor was such a special up moment for you in Seattle. But then you take a look at the performance of Joe Burrow Sunday for Cincinnati. It just wasn't the same guy, at least not what everybody expected. What the hell happened? I mean, it was a great win for the Patriots, but what the hell happened to Cincinnati?
Yeah, well, I often say like week one can be a little bit of a liar because I think there are some quarterbacks who do a great job of studying and game planning for an opponent. I think Cincinnati is like that. Traditionally, I think New England has been like that. And it's a little bit of a blind date. Like you really don't know what you're getting. You're going up against a new head coach. You're going up against you get like some new things. I also think Burrow didn't practice a lot in training camp. Jamar Chase's situation is unsettled. I think Cincinnati, everyone's saying they're a Super Bowl contender. Like, not so sure. You paid the quarterback, you tagged the receiver. They lost some key guys. They lost Tyler Boyd on offense. They lost DJ Reader to the Detroit Lions. They lost some good players on that defense. So they're not quite the same team that they were. It's going to be tough to get back to what they were. But I also think the Patriots came out and had a really good game plan. They played good defense, and the ball kind of bounced their way. I thought the Gesicki touchdown that they reviewed, they called it a touchdown. Then they went to New York on the replay assist, and then they said, no, not a touchdown. They later came back, I think today, and said, or maybe yesterday, and said, oh, we were wrong. That should have been a touchdown. But after that swing is when the Bengals had the big fumble. So, I think there's some things that just in football, it just doesn't go your way. And I think that's, the Bengals could kind of point to that. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to the New England Patriots. Their defense played outstanding. Their offense played safe. I thought it was a really good game plan. I thought in terms of Jacoby, he had answers on third down. He ran the ball well. I think he struggles still with I hear people say all the time, oh, he's such a good athlete. Jacoby Brissett, he's such a good athlete. He's athletic. I don't know that he's such a good athlete. I think when if and when Drake May ever takes over this offense, where Jacoby's been great, right? He's been really good. But where he really struggles or is there's a room for improvement is on the naked bootleg game, in my mind. And so I think if you use this running game that the way that they're using, if Drake can get trained up to see the hots and empty formation and some of that stuff the way Jacoby has, or just have a little bit more of a veteran presence like Jacoby has, plus the naked bootleg game that this offense is really important for, then I think this offense can really take off. But they played it safe. They were in a game. I think it was one of the best stories of the week, a big upset. And, obviously a great start for New England because I don't think a lot of people were giving them much of a chance.
No, clearly not. Lynch was. I'll give him credit for that. He picked them. So, good for Mike. I never thought. I said, okay, they're going to win 4 games this season. Well, they've already got one of the 4. So, and then Seattle comes to town. Everybody thought your former team comes to town this Sunday. But they said, well, that should be a win for the Patriots. But I'm not sure that that automatic.
No, well, nothing's automatic in the NFL. And that Seattle game, it was interesting. Like, their offense played really terrible in the first half, like really, really terrible. They gave up not one, but two safeties, I think both in the second quarter. Like, that's hard to do. Like, if you were point shaving, that would be hard to do. Like, that's how badly they played. But I think it's a learning curve for them as well. They've got a new head coach. They've got a new offensive coordinator. Their offensive coordinator is Ryan Grubb, coming from college. He was at the University of Washington last year, helped them go to the national championship with the vertical passing game. He left to go down to Alabama with Kalen DeBoer. And then Seattle said, no, your offense was prolific. We want you to come here and run our offense here. But that vertical passing game, you need the offensive line to go with it. And they do not have that right now, partially because of injury and partially where they've chosen to spend their money. But that was a problem. So in the second half, they came out and they basically played like the Patriots played. They said, hey, we're going to play it safe. We're going to help our offensive line. And we're going to run the football. We're going to have more on-time, quicker passes, maybe like 15 yards and shorter. And they really dominated the second half. And I think that's probably what I would say, just going back to New England real quick. Like, the whole talk in the preseason was how bad the offensive line is, how bad the offensive line is. But I think you can call a game in such a way that the offensive line, you put them in a spot to be successful. And I think Seattle figured that out in the second half. I think New England figured that out going into that game. But both defenses are definitely the strength of their team, no doubt.
Yeah, man, you look at these quarterbacks. The Bears go with their quarterback. The Washington goes with the guy they drafted. Denver goes with the guy they drafted. Minnesota would have gone with the guy they drafted if he didn't get hurt. The only team that didn't go with the guy they drafted are the Patriots. So you kind of have to wonder, do they wait until things go south? If things keep going well, they're not going to make a change, right?
No, yeah, no. Like, you only start your young first round pick quarterback, I think, if you have to. I think the Patriots are the team that's doing it the best. Caleb Williams started. He played terrible. The team got a win. Basically, a second-year quarterback made a bonehead mistake and threw the game in Tennessee. That's the only reason that they, both those guys were learning. Bo Nix goes into Seattle, throws it over 40 times. Probably not the recipe. Sean Payton will probably look at the film and say, man, I called this game like I had Drew Brees as my quarterback, but I don't. Bo Nix is a good player. Caleb's a good player. Jaden Daniels in Washington, first-round pick. He didn't play great. He ran the ball well, but that's not the recipe. Dan Quinn even said it today. To me, and I know I'm biased because I sat like some guys sat, like Tom Brady sat, like Aaron Rodgers sat. I sat behind Brett Favre. I sat for 3 years. Now, I think the idea is kind of like the Patrick Mahomes idea. While your team is winning games, be developing your backup quarterback in the background. And I think that's what happened. Mahomes wasn't the full-time starter until his second year. I think as you're winning games, New England, you're developing Drake May. And there's creative ways to do that. I know that Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, Mike McCarthy, Jim Zorn, some of the quarterback coaches or coaches that I had, they were developing me in the background. I wasn't just standing there watching. They were developing me as the team was winning games. And as long as you're able to win games with the starter that you have, then I think it's okay to sit your young star quarterback.
So, Manny, let me ask you this. You sat behind Brett Favre, a Hall of Famer. You got traded to Seattle, and you were ready to play right then. How did you develop, even though you didn't play a lot during the regular season?
I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll use an example even from like when Mike McCarthy was my quarterback coach, which was technically my second year. Mike McCarthy, so Saturday night before a game, Mike McCarthy or any quarterback coach, they will kind of reinstall something from the game plan to the starting quarterback. It's really just kind of a reminder. Maybe you go over red zone, you go over third down, something like that. Well, Brett Favre had been in this offense, basically as long as you could be in it. He was coming off of 3 NFL MVPs, 2 consecutive Super Bowls. Like, he's going to sit in that, quarterback meeting with Mike McCarthy, his brand new quarterback coach. And he's like, "You're going to tell me about 24 Dino Weichel lacrosse? Really? I threw a touchdown pass in that Super Bowl on that play. I threw a touchdown pass in the NFC Championship on that play. But go ahead, tell me about it." And so like that's kind of, and I would have just been sitting in the room listening to Mike McCarthy explain to Brett Favre, and I was the backup. Now I didn't get almost any reps during practice all week, but if something had happened to Brett, I would have been expected to go in and play at a Brett Favre level. That's what the expectation is. That's what the standard was in Green Bay. So like something creative, something creative that Mike McCarthy did is I was in charge of the quarterback meeting that night. I would be the one up in front of the class installing red zone, installing 3rd and 3 to 6, 3rd and 7 to 10, 3rd and 11 plus to Mike McCarthy, to Brett Favre. So like Saturday nights were kind of like my game day. It was pretty likely that Brett Favre wasn't going to get hurt, but it was 100% going to happen that I was going to run the Saturday night install. And so I'd get up, I was locked. I was prepared. All my rookie friends, they were like doing stuff. They were like, "Hey, come do this, come do that." I was like, "Bro, I got a game Saturday night." And that's when I installed a Brett Favre and Mike McCarthy. And so I was ready. And so like when Sunday came, if Brett Favre had gotten hurt, I at least knew what to do. I owned that game plan. Like I knew it better than anybody else because of the pressure cooker that I was put in on Saturday night. I don't think that's normal. Like I played 18 years in the NFL. I didn't see that everywhere. I just saw young quarterbacks, like they just sit in the room and like they just be like another guy in the room. But I thought in Green Bay, whether it was because of Ron Wolf or Mike Holmgren or Andy Reid or whoever the people were there, they were so good at developing young quarterbacks in the shadows while Brett Favre was the guy that they were coaching. And really, for the most part, like my first year, I wasn't even allowed to talk in the meeting. Like me and Doug Peterson were two of the backups. We just would sit there and listen while the coaching staff coached Brett Favre. So it doesn't have to be the same every year, every place, but clearly there are things you can do instead of just like, "Oh yeah, just sit and learn, shut up and listen, take notes." Like that clearly, to me, isn't the best way. The best way is to be creative and find ways to develop your young quarterback, because at some point he's going to be playing.
It's like teaching. It's how do you find the best way to be a teacher? Do you involve your students, or do you just let them sit there and listen to the lecture? I mean, it's such a no-brainer to me to hear what you said about you being the guy that had to study, that became involved, that you became a bigger part of the program than just sitting there and listening and pretending to take notes. That's an amazing concept that it's not that difficult to grasp, but there's a lot of trust involved. I mean, McCarthy had to have a lot of trust in believing in doing that.
Well, the irony, like if I'm looking back and I'm really being honest, I don't know how much, like if you were to put a percentage of it, I don't know what percentage was for developing me and what percentage was just trying to keep Brett Favre's attention, because he's probably sitting in there like, "I heard this all before. Man, this play is named after me. I've run this play more times than Joe Montana and Steve Young combined. Like, I'm good. I don't need to hear it, But then, like, when I get up and I'm trying to explain it, it's almost like the class clown in the back of the class is like, man, I can't wait to rib him when he screws up. Did you say Dino Weichel lacrosse? It was X-Shell lacrosse. Like making fun of me. So there's a method. Mike Holmgren used to say this all the time. He's like, when I hire a coach, I'm not really hiring a coach. I'm hiring a teacher. So like when you say that, I think that fits. It makes perfect sense.
So by the time was that your fourth year you were in Seattle, 3 in Green Bay? Is that right?
Yeah, it was my fourth year.
Fourth year. So you were we went with Mike Holmgren, who came from Green Bay. I brought you over there, and did you feel supremely confident when you were taking over as a starter in your fourth year?
I really did. And the funny thing is I wasn't really ready. And part of it was like, it was the same offense, but it was different people in Seattle. And it was also not exactly the same offense. Like, we kind of took a few steps back. Mike Holmgren had a saying, hey, we got to walk before we can run. And like, basically, you have to earn the ability to go and check with me systems and audible systems. And so I went in there year one in Seattle, kind of like, all right, hey, here are the audibles, and they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so there was a little bit of friction. But what happened that year, ironically, it was a different veteran quarterback. Trent Dilfer had just won the Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens, couldn't find a team. Allegedly, I think what he did is he found the Seahawks because he looked at me and he was like, who's this guy? I'll take his job by week 3. I'll come in and be his backup, and then I'll be the starter. But I think what I realized there is I had learned all this different stuff from Brett Favre, the gunslinger, right? I had learned all that kind of like how to be that kind of a backup. And Trent Dilfer, what he was, is he's a guy that came in and he really thought about the team. He was trained by Tony Dungy in Tampa, and he kind of had this mentality of like, clock management. 3rd and 3 is better than 3rd and 7. Like, I'm basically gonna play winning football, and I'm not gonna try to win fantasy football. It was like a really different mindset than Brett had. Brett was like, cut it loose. If I throw 4 interceptions, it's all good because I threw 4 touchdowns. Like, it was a totally different mindset. And so I think I had some like weaknesses or some blind spots in how I thought about being an NFL quarterback. And Trent, I got hurt early, and then Trent came in. They went undefeated with Trent. But I watched on the bench, I watched Trent win us games that we shouldn't have won because he protected the ball, he protected the team, he let our punter punt, he, field goals were sacred to him. Like, there was things that he did that really I had no idea about. I was kind of like, well, we should just throw it here. Like, we can throw it. And he'd be like, no, make them burn their 3 timeouts and then we win. It's like, that's kind of boring, but it was such good football. And so even in year 4, I feel like I still had stuff to learn in a big way.
Before I get to, and Lynch and I get to your alma mater, Boston College, which is a big reason why we wanted you on today. I have to ask you about Aaron Rodgers and his performance last night against the 49ers, and what you saw, what you thought, and because he's coming to town here in another couple of weeks, right after Seattle, I think. So what do you think, Matt?
I think he looked great. Not perfect, but he doesn't have to be perfect. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played, okay? And I think this is what happened. Last year, the Jets defense was so good, and the quarterback play was so bad. So they had no hope. They really almost had no chance. And so he doesn't have to come in and be MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore. He just has to be a guy that has like a medium Aaron Rodgers year, like maybe 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And it reminds me of when Tom Brady went to Tampa. Tampa had this really good defense, and they had a quarterback in Jameis Winston that threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Brady came down there and just kind of steadied the ship. He was a leader, settled everybody down, puts a little bit of fear into the opposing team in terms of like what they thought they could do, blitzes and all that kind of stuff. But he protected the ball. He just protected the team. He protected negative plays. And he went down there and immediately he made them relevant and gave them hope just because he protected the football. And it wasn't like he had an MVP type year or career year, but a good year, like almost like a pedestrian year for him, plus that defense equals a contender. And so this is a tough division this year, but I think Aaron Rodgers will do that. Like, he's very good. If I could point to like one thing that he does well that he does not get enough credit for, he protects the football. He does an excellent job of not throwing interceptions. And that hasn't been the case in New York. It just sort of been the opposite.
Right. Lynch, why don't I do the camping commercial now?
Sure.
And then Matt, Mike's got a question for you. First of all, is Annabelle going to be with us or not? Is she not going to be with us, your daughter?
No, she's our resident Boston College expert and also a Seahawks expert because she's been working for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, she would have checked all the boxes too. Come on.
I know. But no, she's working for Sports Spectrum today, and she's got a podcast, I think, with an Olympic pole vaulter, if I'm not mistaken.
How cool is that? I mean, I really, You must be pretty proud of her.
No, it's very good. And like when she took the job with the Seahawks, she was considering using like an alias name, and and the idea sort of came from Peter King. If you guys know Peter King, his daughter was an intern with the Seahawks when I was the quarterback there. And Peter King's obviously a major media guy. Everyone knows. Well, she came in. Her name's Mary Beth, and like no one knew that it was Peter King's daughter. And so like one of the things Peter King told me later is he was like, it really fascinated me to hear how all these different people treated her as an intern versus how they treated me as like, I'm Peter King, like the writer. And, it's just fascinating. It sort of stuck with me. So we strongly considered giving Annabelle like a fake last name for her time in Seattle, but decided against it. But she paved her own way, and I think everyone there was like really great to work with. But
You think it was okay? Do you think there's more pressure on her to perform because she's a Hasselbeck? So all of a sudden they're going to treat her differently because she's your daughter. I understand why they would do that, but I just want to know if it's a pressure thing or if it's a learning curve.
Hey, I no doubt. I mean, I felt it. My dad played for the Patriots, and I felt like I used to get made fun of in high school because every time my name was in the paper, everyone would be like, "Oh, is your middle name son of former Patriot Don?" Because like every time I got mentioned, it'd be like Matt, son of former Patriot Don Hasselbeck, had a good hold on the extra point. Like as a sophomore, I'd be like, this is so embarrassing, Like, but that's just it's kind of the nature of how it goes. Everything you do, even if it like really doesn't matter that much, is under the microscope. So I think she's used to it more than I was. But
before we get to the commercial, let's keep it in the family here. Henry is a freshman at UCLA.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a big deal. Going to the Big Ten, UCLA national program.
His recruiting had such a crazy thing. Like he was quarterback, obviously at Xaverian, and but he was he was committed to play lacrosse at Maryland. Like we thought he was a lacrosse player. He wasn't really getting recruited at a high school. He as a sophomore, he was at Belmont Hill. He was the third string quarterback on a team that won one game. Like he just didn't think football was his sport. He hits puberty. He changes schools. The opportunity to play is there. He starts getting recruited for football, and he committed to Michigan State. Michigan State was on him big time. They were like all about him. And then their head coach gets fired during the season in a real ugly situation. And then he had nowhere to go. Like the musical chairs of quarterback recruiting kind of happens, and it was Chip Kelly, a New England guy who has just, I would say, irrational love and loyalty for people from New England. Like, he was the very first person. We played St. John's Prep in the Super Bowl at Gillette, and we're on the bus kind of celebrating. And the very first person to call him was Chip Kelly, head coach at UCLA. And the next thing I know, Chip Kelly's at our house. Chip Kelly's at Xaverian. Henry's out there. He commits to go play for Chip, and then Chip, as you guys know, he leaves to fill Bill O'Brien's spot at Ohio State when Bill O'Brien becomes the head coach at BC, and then all of a sudden it's a new head coach in UCLA. It's just the musical chairs of the coaching position. So it's been like a really wild and crazy ride, but they had their first game at Hawaii just recently. One of my first games that I got to play in at Boston College was actually at Hawaii also. They got their home opener at the Rose Bowl this weekend against Indiana. So I'm hoping with the Big Ten schedule, I'll get to see some of his games. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee now, and he's got a game at LSU next weekend. So, yeah, it's got a lot going on with Boston College's success. I'm coaching high school football with my brother Tim and my dad. Henry's UCLA schedule. We got a lot going on right now.
So let me get this straight. So last year, you and your dad were assistant coaches at Xaverian, right?
Correct.
All right. So where did a high school program from Tennessee come into the picture?
I'm going to tell you. So for the last 2 years, I coached at Xaverian with my dad and coached my son, Henry. It was so much fun, like so much fun. And my middle brother, Tim, like middle child, FOMO, fear of missing out. I think he saw how much fun we had, and he was like, man, I want to do that. And so this year he quit calling games at ESPN on the ACC network, college games. He's only doing NFL. And he's now the head coach of the high school football team, the Ensworth Tigers here in Nashville, coaching his son, who's the junior quarterback. And so when he decided to do that, my dad was like, hey, I'll help coach tight ends. I'll move to Nashville. I was looking for a reason to move too. So I'm like, hey, I'll come. I'll be the offensive coordinator. So it's like a total family affair. My mom's worried that we're going to fight on the sidelines, which is totally plausible, but
Of course she is.
I don't know. Hasn't happened yet. We're undefeated right now. We're 3-0, so there's been no reason to fight yet, but we'll see.
So you guys are out in Norfolk now? Is that right?
Yeah, we're out. We're out.
Really?
It was hard to go, but it was time to go.
Okay.
But I'd love to come back. But the timing was right for this for a lot of reasons, and we're having a blast. And it's an opportunity, I think, to do something with my dad and with my brother that football's been such a big part of our lives. And honestly, the other part of it is like Zavarian's rolling. Like they're good. I think at the time I stepped in and I feel like I filled a little bit of a void. They had some coaching movement but they've got a great program right now and they're on a roll. And Tim's program is just kind of starting something up. And I think he needs the help a little bit, because he's got the ESPN gig on the side. So it's been a lot of work year one here, but it's been a lot of fun too.
You guys are unbelievable. All right, I got to do this camping thing because you're all going to be in campers before too long. You're going to be living in a campground. The whole Hasselbeck clan will be. Oh, they're parked over there by the river. But after this little commercial that I'm going to read, it's much more of a love fest than a commercial. Mike's got a big question for you, Matt. So hang on. Campers, are you ready to see what's new in 2025? Well, Cold Springs RV has next year's models as they are arriving daily. Go check out the latest in pop-ups, travel trailers, fifth wheels, and motorhomes. And tell them Lobel and Lynch sent you. It'll make a big difference. They'll at least give you a cup of coffee. At Cold Springs RV, the doors are always open. You can freely browse, and if you want to see the latest in camping, get to Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. I know a guy had a camper in Raymond, New Hampshire. He lived there by himself. He moved next to this very attractive woman who was in a camper by herself, and all of a sudden you had happy campers side by side because they were in campers. So learn more online, coldspringsrv.com. That's coldspringsrv.com. Mike Lynch has a question for you, Matt Hasselbeck.
All right, Matty. So a lot of Henry's home games are going to be in Los Angeles. We're going to give you the Lobel Lynchy Cruiser when it's finally built. All right, it's going to be bigger and better than the Madden Cruiser. You're going to get to take it for 1 week. You get to drive from Nashville out to Los Angeles, but you got to pick a National Football League or college quarterback, past, present, alive, deceased, to ride shotgun with you, somebody you want to have a conversation with while you're riding from Nashville out to LA.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to think I'm just saying this because of who I'm talking to, but I'm telling you, Drake May is one of the coolest dudes that I have met. I was his NFL Legends mentor at the Combine this year and had an awesome group of guys. I had Sam Hartman, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels was there until he quit the Combine. But it was a great group of guys. Bo Nix, I could really pick a lot of those guys. But Drake May is special. And I think, I even said before the draft, and I would continue to say now, he was my favorite quarterback coming out of this draft. And a lot of that has to do with just his personality. I think so much of being the quarterback in a locker room is really just being a guy that your teammates really respect, they love, they just want to be around, kind of an aw shucks, a little bit of Brett Favre, a little bit of Andrew Luck, a little bit of a lot of the great quarterbacks that you see in the league. He's very young. I'll say that too. So I'd probably be introduced to some things that I don't know about, but he'd be great. He'd be great. I think I think you'll find in time. I think everyone will find that he's pretty special when it comes to like the intangibles that people talk about.
You think he has the what it takes to be patient and wait for his turn? A lot of guys, will really be pitching and moaning. I want, I want to play. I want to be traded. I didn't get drafted number 3 to sitting behind the bench behind the, guy who's been around the league. Does he have it? I mean, can he, do it up here?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. So I'm sitting at breakfast at the combine. There's a lot of downtime, and it's those guys I just mentioned. We're sitting at a breakfast table, in a hotel, and I think it was Drake, and he asked these 2 questions. He said, "Hey, what's expected of me if I'm a first-round draft pick quarterback and I'm the starter? Like, what's expected from the team, from the coaches, from like my teammates? Like, what's demanded?" And it was a great question, right? Like, and then this was like an even better question. He said, "Okay, what's expected of me if I'm the high pick? Let's just say I'm a top 5 pick, and I'm not the starting quarterback. There's a veteran quarterback, and they name him the starter. Like, what's expected of me? Like, I took that as like, what are my duties? Like, am I supposed to be, doing research for the starting quarterback? Am I supposed to be bringing him Starbucks every day? Like what's expected?" And I just thought it was just such a mature and humble question in terms of like, I understand who I'm supposed to be if you draft me here. Like, I'm supposed to be the guy that's taking care of the O-line, taking care of the equipment room, taking care of the athletic trainers, probably the most generous person at Christmas time to everyone in the building. Like, I understand that role. I also understand, because he's been that guy at North Carolina. But for a lot of these guys, they've never really been the backup guy. And humility is such a quality to have as a quarterback. Like, I don't know if people realize that. It's such a great quality. So to now all of a sudden be like the understudy to a guy that you feel like, well, I'm actually more talented than him, but I'm the understudy. And like, there's a dynamic there that can be weird. Like, sometimes the first round pick quarterback is making more money than the veteran starter. Like, there's all these weird dynamics. So I just thought it was just like a great question. And it just like, by asking the question, like, I understand that you understand the value and like the stuff that you can bring, even if you're not on the field. That's just an example of like, stuff like that. You just feel like this guy understands. He gets it. He's not about the other stuff.
All right, Matt. Let's talk about Boston College. I don't want to. We need time. We have time here because
Let's go. It's about time we talked about BC and Boston.
we talked a lot of other things to get to this point. So, your feelings about Bill O'Brien, about what's happening over there. I know everything comes from the Florida State win. Everything seems to generate from that because nobody expected that, and not in the way it developed. And so, Go ahead, Matt.
Well, even the Duquesne win. I mean, like, people want to say like, oh, that's whatever it's called now, a 1AA school. But like, there's a lot of people that struggled playing a lesser opponent. I mean, even Boston College last year lost to NIU at home.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, number 5 team in the country, loses to NIU at home. Like, so like, I think all the wins, like, you can learn something. But no, I think Boston College is very, very, very fortunate to have Bill O'Brien. They lost Jeff Hafley in weird timing. He bolted for the NFL. And, it's just bad timing to find a quality head coach, bad timing for that head coach to find a quality coaching staff. And really hard in this day and age to keep your recruits. These are Jeff Hafley recruits. These were not Bill O'Brien high school recruits for the most part. And then even to keep your own players. Like, I promise you, guys like Ozzie Trapillo, the great tackle at Boston College, the second that the head coach leaves, I'm sure these big time, Big Ten, SEC schools are trying to pounce and pay guys like that to steal them from Boston College. And so BC rallied around, they hired Bill O'Brien. They rallied around him, I think, financially with alumni support. He hired an incredible staff and basically held the line and held people together, held the offensive line together, kept the quarterback. And then now we get to start actually coaching the team. And so I just think we're really, really fortunate to have kind of weathered that storm because it was very unique.
I agree. I agree. When he went to Penn State, it was a tumultuous situation, but he was. Everyone says he was the perfect guy at the perfect time for that program, and he appears to be the perfect guy at the perfect time for the BC program because there is excitement there that I haven't seen since I know a long time.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, like you say, he's the perfect guy at the perfect time, but I'm like one friend removed from a lot of his wife's BC friends or his St. John's Prep friends, and so when he went from like I think the Patriots quarterback coach to replacing Joe Paterno and the mess that he walked into there, I think all of his friends were like, "Oh my gosh, Billy O, what are you walking into, man? You're trying to replace Joe Paterno," and in that circumstance. And really, like a big thing right now is the transfer portal. And if I'm not mistaken, Bill O'Brien, when he took over Penn State, that was really the first ever transfer portal because all of those kids, if I have it right, they could have all left. They all had the option to leave. I forget what the rules were. The NCAA is all over the place all the time. They're a mess usually, but they were even more a mess back then, I think. And basically he walked into that and galvanized and kept that team together, brought unity to that program, and was really, really successful. So he's a guy that like you could point to like, hey, yeah, he was a very successful head coach of the Houston Texans for 7 years, I think, but also the success that he had at Penn State. Like this is not his first rodeo. So he steps into Boston College, has a plan, hires a bunch of great coaches in like 3 days, it felt like, grabs Bears Najarian from the Patriots, who was Bill Belichick's right-hand chief of staff kind of guy, lands Doug Marrone to be assistant head coach type of guy, finds Tim Lewis, who's the defensive coordinator, who's a Tom Coughlin, Bill Cowher guy, gets Craig Fitzgerald as his strength coach, steals him away from, I think, the Florida Gators. He'd been with the New York Giants. Just a really impressive job by Bill O'Brien in his first couple of days. And I really think his experience of weathering what he did at Penn State was a huge, huge part of him being ready this time.
Who's the best coach you ever had?
It's a hard question because listen, honestly, I had so many great coaches. Like even my college coach being my first college coach being Tom Coughlin, and then even like the great quarterback coaches under him, or even quarterback coaches that I had with all the coaching turnover at the head coach that I had. But I get to Green Bay and Mike Holmgren's the head coach. Andy Reid is the position coach. My second year, Mike McCarthy's my quarterback coach. I've got guys like Mike Sherman. I've got Jim Zorn. I've got Darrell Bevel. I really had this amazing line. And I finished my career in Indianapolis, and the quarterback coach was Clyde Christensen, Clyde Christensen coached Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and then Tom Brady. Like that's his resume. And like had me for like 8 games in the middle of that when Luck got hurt. So, I really, really was fortunate. Spent the most amount of time with Jim Zorn. He had like a Mr. Miyagi kind of quality about him, like wax on, wax off, up, down. Like, what is this for, coach? And then it shows up in the game. But now that I'm a high school coach, I find myself using so many different nuggets from so many different coaches that coached me. That even guys I never even wanted. Like at the time, I'm like, oh, Pete Carroll. Like I'm not listening to this guy. Like I feel like I use more Pete Carroll things to my team than anybody. But no, just really fortunate to like give back because of all the great coaching that came to me.
But what a nomadic experience coaching must be for a guy like O'Brien. You really. It's not a great way of life. It might be great, have great rewards, but it really demands a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's a win-win at Boston College. Like Bill O'Brien was going to be coaching at Ohio State in Columbus, and if I'm correct, I think his family, like his wife and his family, they were going to be living in Dedham, and like that's just at some point, like if you can get everything to align where you're living and coaching where makes sense for your family, you don't let those jobs go. And that's why I really think what's special about this Bill O'Brien job or higher, is that if he has a ton of success here at Boston College, which we all believe he can, this is not a stepping stone job for him. Like,
Right.
he's not looking, he doesn't have his eye like, oh, gee, I wonder if I could go get this job or that job. This is his dream job. And even when he was the coach of the Houston Texans, like I was in that division. I talked to him before and after games quite a bit. He would always say this, like this one thing he would always say. He would say, when I was growing up in Boston, even when I was at Brown playing football, my dream job was to be the head coach of Boston College. And that would usually be like, hey, how about this? A Boston guy, head coach down here for the Houston Texans, doing a great job. Congratulations, coach. Not bad for a St. John's prep guy. And he'd be like, what's funny? I'm pinching myself, but like, my dream job was Boston College, my dream job. And so it's kind of a funny thing for an NFL head coach to say, but I think he means it. I think he absolutely means it. He was saying it before he was trying to get the job. This isn't something he's saying just to try to get hired. Like, I think it's legitimate. And I think, like I said, we're really, really lucky to have him. And he probably feels really fortunate to get to have this job. So
What about you, Matt? What about you and your brothers and coaching? What about? I mean, have you had your career as quarterback and that's it, and you're in permanent retirement, but you're in coaching because you jive? Or would you think about if an opportunity came available either with the Patriots or some other National Football League team that you'd think about it or consider coming back as a quarterback coach or offensive coordinator, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because a lot of my friends and guys that like I even trained are now like they're head coaches and coordinators and quarterback coaches. It's a weird thing. I think for me, the number one thing is probably family time. And by that, I mean not missing out on Henry's opportunities to play. I had a dream job at ESPN, loved that job, and basically got let go by ESPN. And I said to my wife, and I might have told you guys this once, they did for me what I would not have had the courage to do, and that's quit a dream job to go spend more time with my son in his senior year in high school, and then also more time with my dad. It was like there's no amount of money that could give me what I got out of that experience. And to coach at my high school, and the head coach was there when I was there in high school, like, it's just so cool. And so, like, now in this situation, kind of doing it again with family, with Tim, coaching my nephew, that'll be over in 2 years. Like, he'll move on. Like, he's going to go to college. And so I'll have that decision. But I don't think I would ever give up the opportunity to see Henry finish out his college career, whatever that looks like. So would it be fun? Like, yeah, it'd be fun. But in my priority list, I think one of the main lessons that I've learned is it's probably family over career for me. But we'll see. I wasn't planning on moving to Nashville. I wasn't planning on coaching at Zavarian. I never planned on working at ESPN. Didn't expect to get drafted into the NFL. So whatever God's plan is, I'm just ready and available and just try to do the best I can.
Well, now you get a free bus to drive to Los Angeles anytime you want.
You know what's funny about the bus? You mentioned the bus because my wife and I are actually going to the home opener at the Rose Bowl. We play Indiana this weekend. But we play Knoxville, which is like 3.5 hours away Friday night. That's like a long trip. And then we got another game against Memphis, which is like 5 hours and 5.5 hours away. So this bus is like, I might need one of these buses. But I mentioned the week 3 game, they're playing at LSU. And so it's hard to fly from Nashville, Tennessee to, like, is it Baton Rouge? I don't even know where they are. Okay. But this is what I'm thinking. I'm in Tennessee. There's all these tour buses with all these musicians everywhere. What if I could find like an empty tour bus? You know what I mean? Like, let's just say like Chris Stapleton's like not on tour or something like that. What if I just like rented his tour bus, down to the LS? Like, I don't know. It's just a thought. I don't know who I'd call about this.
Get the Lobel Lynch cruiser. And
well, that's what maybe I need that instead. Is it built? What's the story?
Oh. Everything's a dream to us. We're just two guys that are sitting here talking to people like you. I noticed on I was doing some research. I don't have to do any research because I get pictures of you in the pool with my kids when you were like 7 or 8 years old. And
wow.
But your birthday, September 25th,
That's
same
right.
day. That's me, September
Let's
25th.
go.
Yep.
You know what?
Me, and
Sorry,
Christopher.
I'm weak. I need a moment. This.
Were you jealous, Bob, that you're not going?
Oh, you guys want to spend a little alone time? I'll take a little break here. It's all right.
I
You got-
gotta
no,
ask
you
you.
two levers that hug in a hugging contest. That's all right. That's all right. I'm all for it. I'm happy for you.
I've known this for years, but I've never brought it up. You were struck by lightning twice, and your wife was struck once by lightning. Is that right?
It's a little confusing. No, we both got struck, but it was at the same time. So we both got struck once.
I'm so afraid of lightning. It's frightening. I mean, I am terrified of lightning.
So where were you when this happened?
I was at a wedding in Norfolk. I was actually at Peter Laviolette, the hockey coach of the New York Rangers. I was at his wedding. Didn't know him. Grew up in Norfolk with the girl that he married. And 16 of us got zapped. I mean, I'm talking like you can't even really fathom how powerful lightning is until
don't even talk about it.
Until it's near you. Yeah, it's the real deal. But I'm not sure if I've ever told you guys this, but so then my daughter Annabelle goes to Boston College, and they're playing this game like first week of school, like 2 truths and a lie, like whatever icebreaker type thing. And I think I have the story right. And she's like, oh, one of her truths was my parents were struck by lightning at a wedding. And one of the girls who lived across the hall from her at Boston College, my daughter played lacrosse. This girl plays softball. She's like, did you say your parents were struck by lightning at a wedding? She's like, yeah. She's like, that's crazy because people got struck by lightning at my parents' wedding.
Oh my God.
Anyway, long story short, this is Peter Laviolette's daughter who's at Boston College and my daughter, and they ended up being like really great friends for 4 years at BC. It's like crazy. Just crazy story.
Did it come through the ground or was it struck from above? Was it the ground?
Yeah, so it obviously, it felt like it came from the ground, but I think it came. I mean, I'm not a scientist on the logistics, but for me, like how it happened, it came like right through my toes first, up to like my body. I was sitting, and then like right back out. It kind of comes in, comes out. You don't even have time to say ouch, but it hurts. But there's no like residual hurt. I don't know. It's like I was kind of hoping my hair would start growing back after it happened. No luck.
All right.
Are you all right?
No, I don't want to talk about lightning anymore. You can talk about your birthdays. That's fine. But I really need to touch upon the tragedy that happened at Boston College about Johnny Goodrow and how it affected the whole community and how, I mean, it's an unspeakable tragedy, the way it happened and the fact that they were groomsmen in their sister's wedding and his wife's pregnant, and you can't imagine the loss. I can't comprehend it. And for the college community itself, I mean, Matt, whether you knew Johnny Hockey or not, and you knew what a great player he was, and the fact that he went to Columbus because it was a better place for his family. It just so sad.
So terrible. I mean, so terrible. And it's at moments like this that you kind of need leadership and you need, I guess there's like life lessons that you can learn through the tragedy. And, I think that's one of the reasons, like going back to Bill O'Brien, that he, like after that Florida State game, when everyone wanted to shower him with praise, I think the very, very first thing that he did is he said, like, hold on, I need to mention this about the Boston College community. And so whether it's been, Pete Frates or, like some of the other tragedies, Wells Crowther with the red bandana, 9/11. The Boston College community is special and they rally around. And I think like that's probably one of the things about BC. Like you don't just go there to get an education, like, or just to play sports. It's there's a faith component at Boston College. There's a well-roundedness that you get from Boston College. And so like unspeakable tragedy, unspeakable pain for that family. But like even like right after we mentioned my daughter Annabelle, like she's working for Sports Spectrum, this digital media, the intersection of faith and sports kind of community. And that community is very public and very out there. You get to hear athletes' stories. It's kind of great. But also within that community, there's a tight knit player to player, pro to pro community. And shortly after that, there was I don't even know how many hockey players, professional football players, professional baseball players on a prayer call with the wife of one of the guys that was lost and the family. And I think just like the sports community rallying around it, because we do get caught up sometimes, like so much in the score of the game, who's the starter, who's the backup, like who should be hired and fired. And like part of what's great about sports is it reminds you at times that there's something much bigger out there than us. I'm reminded of like when Brett Favre had that incredible football game right after his father's passing. Like it was almost like there's something bigger to this life than just this. Like you can't deny when some stuff like that happens. And so I don't really have words other than to say our prayers are with that family also. And I would hope that the Boston College community realizes how important it is to rally around each other, and I think they really do.
No, they without question. I was fortunate that Barry Gallup was one of my heroes growing up in my hometown, and he used to bring me and my buddies into when he was playing at BC and introduce us to all Father Monin, to Bill Flynn, to all the right good people. And even though I didn't go there, I felt like I was my three daughters went there,
Mm-hmm.
and when this thing happened, it was like a family member. Something bad happened to a family member for them, and there's no question, it's palpable, and you can feel it with that school.
Yeah, and you mentioned Barry Gallup. Like Barry Gallup is, they named the athletic training room after him at Boston College. It's people like that make the place very special. My wife and I actually just spoke at Boston College to the incoming class of the Carroll School of Management. And, one of the things that I think we always try to tell those kids as they're coming in, like if you're here just to take classes or just to, learn a skill, like you're missing out. Like get to know the people. And for me, on the podium of great people that I've met at Boston College, I'd put Barry Gallup not only at the podium, he's probably a gold medalist.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Bobby, anything else? We'll let
You were the perfect guest today. You checked all the boxes and delivered. And
can I just say real quick? Who's the BC's next game against? Missouri, right? Missouri.
Yeah, number 6.
Yeah.
If you ask any kid that goes to Boston College or has been at Boston College for the last 4 years, you say, "What's your favorite memory of your 4 years at Boston College?" The number one answer is going to be the BC Missouri football game that was in overtime at Alumni Stadium. So like this is not just like a random game against an SEC school. Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach, he's a great coach, but he kind of popped off. He's like, "Why are we playing Boston College? When's the last time we ever recruited a kid from Massachusetts?" He's a great coach. He's an SEC coach. I think his team's top 10 in the country, maybe number 11. But this is not just any game. This is a game that means a lot to Missouri. This is a game that means a lot to BC, especially to like that student body, because they remember what it felt like when they beat them. I think it was double OT, but either way, it was a great game.
Absolutely, cannot wait. If I'm Missouri's up to number 6 in the country right now.
I'm good on the high school rankings. I'm not up to date on the college rankings.
All right, well, Matty Nice, as we call it. We'll call you Matty Nice.
Appreciate it.
What a great day. And good luck to your team down there. And good luck to your brother Tim and your dad, Don. And Bobby, anything else?
No, really happy to have Matt. You were great. He really delivered. And sorry Annabelle couldn't make it, but I have a feeling she would have upstaged it. But that's the feeling I got.
No doubt. Right. I'm getting used to it.
Matty, thanks a lot. Folks,
Appreciate
thanks for joining us. And make sure you check us out on UnAnchoredBoston.com.